Pyra, joined here by Kasing and Prolly after that explosive game against Giants. Another win of the board. Is it starting to feel normal, Raymond?
Sorry. Well, going 6-0 when just recently joined the team is a new experience. But I think today's game, though, was one of the hardest that we had. Because, well, the game, I think we played really bad in the early game. It didn't go so well. And then after we came back into the lead, like, we done a lot of good objective, like, rotational play. But then after we kind of threw it again, and then due to mechanical error, like mistakes and stuff, but then we put out in the end, finally.
Well, that's the entire game then. We're done. Just kidding. Tell me a little bit more about the early game. Maybe probably you had the 1-versus-1, and you know one of those things that Giants like to do is get World Up rolling, and he did. Did you get a little scared for your team there, knowing that the cannon can be quite impactful in team fights?
I wasn't really scared about the cannon. It was more of like the way that Giants play is definitely a version of us that comes out on occasion, and I think that's what happened in this game, where there's just a lot of scrapping and there's a lot of fights without like objectives taken. It's just like we just met in mid lane and we fought, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, I think once like Odo died top, I was like, this might be one of those games where everyone is just fighting all the time, and that kind of came to fruition. So it was a little bit terrifying because I was like, when the game goes like that, it's very 50-50 because it's literally just two teams like throwing themselves at each other, and doesn't always come out on top.
Yeah, and you know that Giants do have that potential to, when they win one fight, close out the game like they did versus Elements. After Rio got caught there at the base, what would you have said to your team if you were able to communicate with them at that moment?
Like after Rio got caught?
And after they pushed
fight?
up, yeah, and then pushed up top.
Stop sucking. No, I probably at that point I'd probably been like, all right, guys, we need to like stop the bleeding and like get back into kind of like the groove of the game, because once the game starts going our way, it's really easy to read the next move. But when games are a lot of like really scrappy like that, it's kind of hard to get your footing again, and it's more of I see a champion, I'm gonna go fight it.
Yeah.
So kind of getting out of that and back into like, okay, we want this, this, and this. How do we get to there?
You had a couple of great strengths in that game. One of those was Yarnan on Jinx. What a performance by him. Tell me a little bit about picking it. It's not something we've seen in Europe all that often because it is, of course, quite a risky pick.
Well, regarding the Jinx pick, like, we had the choice to choose between like Graves and Corki, but they're kind of like, well, they're really strong in the early to mid game especially, but kind of we needed a hyper carry kind of, so then we chose to have Jinx so we could have Fresh and Maokai peel for her. Like, even though in the game it didn't show like we were actually peeling for her, apart from myself. But
well, also Hjarnan was like, I want Jinx.
Yeah.
Like when it came down to it, it was like, oh, they banned Kalista, they picked Sivir, and he's like, okay, I want Jinx against this. And it's like, all right.
So do you think that's also because he's feeling more secure at your side and you guys have been able to practice a lot and play a lot and win a lot, and that he wants to pick up that champion?
I also think, well, one of the reasons why he wanted Jinx, like, mainly because she only, he really loves her as a champion, like, he enjoys her playstyle. And I think if you're put on a comfort champion, you're likely to perform much better compared to another pick.
Yeah. Someone else who did really good was Ryu. Just as we say at the Endless Desk, maybe it's more his playstyle to be supportive and flank. He gets a monster score on Kassadin. Is that something, though, that you've seen in... The crowd is already hyped for our next game coming up. Is it something you've seen in Ryu, the fact that maybe he likes to be that carry, or is he not bothered if he's put more in a role where he's just supporting the team?
Ryu's actually like really hard to read sometimes, because I'll see him play like Lulu, or he'll play like Lysandra or something like that, like someone who's not the highest damage scaling, and he'll be kind of like, oh, they're going to kill Hjarnan, I'll stop them. And then other times, like in scrims, he just goes really ham on an assassin and like wants to start all the plays. So I haven't really figured out what he wants to do, like as a role. He kind of just molds between different things, and I think that's actually really easy to play with, though.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. You're keeping that winning streak going. It's all good here. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah. We have a special guest in the studio this week, so let's check in with Quickshot, who's on stage with one of the